What's up, concert addicts? Johnny Kinsvater here with Concert Addiction. Happy New Year. In this video, I'm going to be showing you guys my top 10 list of the best concerts that I was able to attend in 2018. 2018 was a little bit of a rough year as far as concerts go. We did lose a couple of legendary performers, including Vinnie Paul and Aretha Franklin, but it wasn't all bad. There was a lot of major bands touring, a lot of crazy shit that happened, and 22 concerts that I was able to go to. So here are my 10 favorites of those. Coming in at number 10, we have Sublime with Rome at the Greeley Stampede. And this was the only Stampede show that I was able to attend this year, although they did have a stacked lineup like they usually do. This year's Superstars Concert Series lineup included Sublime with Rome, but also Darius Rucker, Dustin Lynch, Sammy Kershaw, a whole bunch of names. But the summer was a pretty busy summer for me. I was only able to make it to one of these concerts, and I picked Sublime with Rome because I figured that was the one that would probably be the most fun and that would appeal to me. And I didn't go to the other concerts, so I can't really compare them. But I think I made the right choice because I had a kick-ass time. This was a fun fucking show. They sound amazing. I know there's a lot of controversy online. People don't want to go see a cover band. Other people call them disrespectful. I don't care. The music sound great, and they put on an awesome show, and that's really all that I care about. They had Filter opening up for them, which was a pretty solid performance as well. Even though I only knew one of their songs, they were still fucking great. The whole show, all in all, was amazing. The way that Sublime with Rome, the way Rome specifically is able to get the crowd to sing, it felt like I was in a different time period. Being in that crowd with all those people, everybody singing What I Got, Back to the Stage, it was just amazing to see that. And yeah, the music sounded great. This was my second time seeing them, but first time seeing them do a full set. It's definitely worth it. Definitely check it out, especially if you're a fan of Sublime music, because this is the closest you're going to get to seeing them, I think, anyways. Even though it's only one of the original guys anymore, still fucking awesome. I loved it. And coming in at number 9 will mark the first and only appearance on this list by the Grizzly Rose, which, if you're unfamiliar, the Grizzly Rose is the best place on the planet Earth. At least it is to me. I call it my Disneyland. It's the happiest place on the planet. If you're Johnny Kinsvater, it's the best honky tonk. It's this little western bar down in Denver. They get live acts every week. It's just a great bar, great environment, and I usually go to a lot of concerts there. And so, obviously, one of those concerts is going to be making it on this list. But due to the fact that I had an overwhelmingly busy year, I only made it to a couple of shows there. I caught the tail end of Tracy Lawrence' performance back in April. And then we went and saw Jimmy Allen with John Party for 106.7 The Bulls. Birthday bash. Their Bull Bash is their 1-year anniversary, so they had this big giant concert at the Grizzly Rose featuring Jimmy Allen opening up for John Party, and it was a kick-ass time. Jimmy Allen only has one song on the radio. He's your classic, what you would call a newcomer, but he held his own. I mean, people were there to party, so it wasn't that hard of a crowd, I'm sure, but he still worked it like he was the headliner, and it was awesome to see him come out. It's definitely going to be on the radar to look out for as far as up-and-coming artists go, because for somebody that only has one song that people know, he had people's attention during his entire set, which is impressive to say the least. John Party killed it, as he always does. This is my second time seeing him. First time in the headliner slot, though. And he's got so many hits right now. He only has a couple of songs, but all his songs are hits. So even if half the show is songs that nobody knows, the songs that we do know are like all #1 super giant hit songs. Dirt on My Boot, or not Dirt on My Boots, but Head Over Boots, his other boot song, pretty much gets played at like every wedding in the Midwest and in the West. It's a very popular song. So that being said, the music was awesome. The show was great. We got to meet John Party. I won some tickets off the radio. He was an awesome dude. And yeah, this show's making it on the list because I can't make a top 10 list without including a show from the Grizzly Rose. And the Bull Bash was awesome, man. It was this radio station's 1-year anniversary, so they were walking around with free shots. They had free bull rides all night. It was just a party. It was a great fucking time, and the security at the venue was stepped up because although I love the Grizzly Rose, the security there always freaked me out because it was nil. They didn't really do much. I mean, They had a bunch of people walking around, but you never got patted down going in there, nothing like that. And it was 2,000 people crammed into this little building, so it always made me a little uneasy just because of the day and time that we are in currently. But this show, they had full-blown security. Everybody got pat down. We got patted down 3 times because we had to enter and then go to the back, and then we got patted down again before the meet and greet. So I don't know, it just felt super safe, which made me be able to enjoy myself even more. So number 9, Jon Pardi and Jimmy Allen at the Grizzly Rose for 106.7's The Bull Bash. And number 8 is going to be REO Speedwagon at the Taste of Colorado Festival in Denver, Colorado, that takes place every Labor Day weekend. 3-day event, totally free. Tons of live music, tons of food and vendors. It's just a great 3-day experience that we usually try to go to every year. This year we went to a couple of days. The musical talent involved in this year's event included Smash Mouth, the Spin Doctors, Sugar Ray. I think the Spin Doctors were there. I might be wrong about that. But definitely Sugar Ray, Smash Mouth, Leanne Rimes, David Nail, Firefall, George Thorogood, and REO Speedwagon, and probably a couple others. Mitchell Tenpenny was there too. But of the artists that I was able to see, REO Speedwagon by far just blew me the fuck away for whatever reason. I can't even really describe it. I think it has a lot to do with just the environment of the show and just how awesome it was that we get to do stuff like that. In this day and age, there's just so much shitty stuff going on, so for thousands of people to be able to hang out in downtown Denver safely enjoying one of the greatest, classic rock bands of all time, rocking out, I think that alone just did it, because it was just a great, fun, relaxing night. Obviously I was pretty fucked up, and there's something too about, standing in the middle of downtown Denver at night, beautiful night, weather's perfect, thousands of people, we're in this park, passing joints back and forth, singing Time for Me to Fly while REO Speedwagon plays in the background, and it's all totally free. I don't know, experiences like that are just, they're just like amazing. They're just once in a lifetime, because you can recreate it, but it's not going to have the same effect. So just that moment of just being in the middle of this park with all these people, we're all just singing, having a good time, just listening to REO Speedwagon play, it was just phenomenal. And George Thorogood and Firefall both played those days, or that day also, and they kicked ass also. But being as they're technically considered separate shows, I think, and REO was the headliner, REO makes it as number 8 on my top 10 list. And number 7, one of my favorite bands from my childhood, but not playing their traditional sound, was Three Doors Down. But like I said, this is not normal Three Doors Down. This was Three Doors Down Back Porch Acoustic Jam Tour that they did earlier in the year. I think it only went a month or two. But Three Doors Down, Elvis Monroe, they toured around playing a full acoustic set. They did an encore at the end where they came back and played a couple of songs full electric. But the entire performance leading up to that was just very intimate and laid back. And the people in Three Doors Down are not how they seem. And this was just kind of the show. Sometimes you'll see like a solo artist and it'll be an evening with. And when you go to the show, it's not a straight up show. It's, them kind of talking more than they usually would, them being more intimate with the crowd. And usually these performances are acoustic, and that's 100% what we got with this performance. And yeah, it was incredible that they could pull off these songs acoustically, because you can have a hit song, but it doesn't sound as good if it's acoustic sometimes. You have to really be able to pull it off. And they did, and the fact that there was enough interest there for this show to bring as many people in as it did, because not too many people really care about Three Doors Down too much. Anyways, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I just know they got a lot of flack for playing the inauguration, and they're just not as big as they used to be. And you wouldn't think Kryptonite would sound as good acoustically, so you might not pay money to go to the show, but a lot of people still did, and they knocked it out of the park, and Elvis Monroe opened up for them. It was amazing, because they played kind of the same style, where they were more intimate talking to the crowd, but they actually had a lot of shit to say, because they were fresh out. I mean, the show was in January, So they were like 3 months out from when they were involved with the Las Vegas shooting. So obviously they talked a lot about that. And it didn't take away from the show at all. It didn't seem like they're just trying to, oh, look at me. Nothing like that at all. And the only reason I say that is because I did see a couple point shit like that out online. And I think they're a solid band that went through some shitty stuff, so it's cool to see them up there still rocking alongside legends like Three Doors Down. And we got to meet Elvis Monroe after the show. One of my friends was sick during, while this concert was happening. She was actually in the hospital, so one of the guys from Elvis Monroe, who's previously in Lifehouse, made a video that I sent to her, just telling her to get better and shit. So yeah, because of all those reasons, it was an awesome show, and I just had a kick-ass time with it. So number 7, Three Doors Down, Back Porch Acoustic Jam at I can't remember what venue it was at. Oh, it was at the Paramount in Denver. There you go. So Paramount in Denver, Three Doors Down, Back Porch Acoustic Jam is number 7. And coming in at number 6 is somebody who is my favorite country singer of all time. And at least I always say he is. I haven't actually dove too deep in to look and see. Maybe there's someone who I technically like a little more. But Justin Moore is my favorite country singer of all time. And my 6th favorite show that I went to last year. Justin Moore's Hell on a Highway tour with Dylan Scott, which came through the First Bank Center at Broomfield, Colorado, or in Broomfield, Colorado. It's a cool little arena venue. I've seen a couple of shows there before. This was probably the best show I've seen there, although it was undersold and arguably at the fault of the promoters, but it might just be that Justin Moore's not as popular as he was. I've seen him every year at least once for the past several years, and the crowds get smaller and smaller. That's just something that happens in, you know, the industry, I guess. He's got this new album coming out, though, it's shaping up to be fucking awesome. So this could put him back on top to where maybe next time he comes through and sells this whole place out. The place wasn't sold out. It was actually maybe less than half full, but that didn't take away from the show at all. In fact, it actually might have made it a little better in my eyes. The music was awesome. Justin Moore's performance is amazing. I just love how he works the crowd. His stage setup's really cool too. He's got these risers that are like stairs with different lights, and he just does a bunch of fun stuff with the crowd. And he's always a great show to go to because it always just makes you feel good. It'll make you cry a little bit too, just because of how deep his songs are. And I think that might be why he might be my favorite country artist. But nonetheless, the show was awesome. He sounded amazing. His music was awesome. And one thing I noticed during the show, it was actually kind of like a special thing that made me like it more, was so artists do this when they're playing big venues, as they look out over the crowd and they're trying to get this part of the crowd to go crazy, and then they'll look up and they'll try to get the top part of the, you know, stadium or auditorium, wherever you're at. They try to work it in sections, try to make everybody over here freak out, over here freak out. And so he was working the front pretty good, and we had pretty decent seats. We were pretty close to the front there. But so he went his finger around the bottom of the crowd, you know, got everybody going crazy, and then he went back up and he looked up and did this, and tried to get the top of the crowd to you know, join in and go crazy too. But there was nobody there, and and you saw the look on his face. You saw him realize, like, fuck. And, you know, it's kind of a shitty thing, but I felt like, because I saw him notice it, but for maybe 3 seconds, it kind of stumped him a little bit. But then after that, he spun around and just started playing harder and having more fun. And I don't know, it just seemed like he knew at that moment that he was playing to people who are actually his fans. Because with these big arenas and these big, like, stadium shows, sometimes they sell some seats for really cheap just to fill it out, or they give a lot of tickets away, or they have specials on tickets. That's how they fill these arenas up. So sometimes you'll get people there that are just there to see a show for cheap, or maybe they got tickets for free. But he knew he was playing to his crowd, people that came to see him, and he just really worked that angle. And I bring that up because I've seen this happen at other shows. I saw a similar thing happen with Vince Neil when I saw him at the Greeley Stampede a couple of years ago. Did the same thing, got everyone worked up in the front, then went to work the back of the crowd, and there was nobody there, and it just pissed him off, and he actually left the stage and just came back grumpy and played a couple more songs and ended his set. Justin Moore did the complete opposite and just totally he used it. It was like fuel for him, and it was just really cool to see that. And all that aside, he's just an awesome live performer, the best country act probably touring, even though he's not at the top of this list. I've seen his show 5 times, so that really says something. I'm going to keep going back, and it's probably going to be on my top 10 list each year as long as he keeps coming through my area. Dylan Scott opened up the show, and he only had a couple of songs at the time. He worked the crowd pretty good too, and his stage setup was cool. He had screens directly behind him that showed music videos for his songs and lyrics for his songs, which a lot of artists don't really do that word for word. But it's cool because he sings love songs, so he had like his wedding video playing in the back during a couple of them. So yeah, all in all, an awesome fucking show. Number 6 on the list, Justin Moore and Dylan Scott, The Hell on a Highway Tour. And number 5, we're halfway there, thanks for bearing with me. Number 5 on my list will be Peter Frampton, who played in April at the Cheyenne Civic Center as part of our ever-growing music scene here in town. The new local promoter that our Civic Center hired late last year, or late the year before last, has just been knocking it out of the park, bringing in a lot of big names to the Civic Center, and one of the big names he brought in last year was Peter Frampton. And I ended up winning tickets to that show as well. I realized there's a lot on this list that I didn't actually pay for, so it might seem like a little bit of a biased list. Nonetheless, I went and saw Peter Frampton, and it blew me the fuck away. I was pretty busy this year, so I didn't get to doing recaps on a lot of the shows I went to. Out of 22 shows, I think I've only filmed or wrote like maybe 2 or 3 or 4, maybe, review/recaps on them. But I did do one on Peter Frampton. It was part of the first podcast that I did back in April. So if you want to know my more in-depth feelings on that, go ahead and check that out. But I'll just say briefly here for the purpose of this list that the reason why I loved this show so much was because I'll just start by saying it was a last-minute decision. I heard he was coming to the Civic Center, but because I was so busy last year, kind of broke, saving money for certain things going on in my life, I was not planning on attending. I won the tickets the day of the show, so it was a super last-minute thing. I figured, yeah, I'll go, why not, have a good time. But I did figure, being Peter Frampton, being one of these older school artists who's getting up there in age, I figured it would just be a fun, relaxing night, and it was. But what I mean is, I've gone to see artists like Jackson Browne, and Roger Waters, and some of these more older artists who sometimes just kind of get up on stage and play and go home, and it's awesome because you're just there to see the artist at that point because, I mean, they've earned the right to not really have to put on that big of a performance, I guess. But what I got was just one of the most high-energy, fun shows that I've ever been to, and it was Peter Frampton, and I just did not see that coming. And he did a cool thing with cell phones, too, because a lot of artists bitch about people on their cell phones all the time. So what he did was cool. He came out before the show started. They had a video that played, and it said, look, we all know you're excited to see Peter Frampton, but we'd appreciate if you just get all your cell phone use out of the way during the first 3 songs. That way everybody can enjoy the rest of the show. And I think that's something that every band who bitches about people being on their phones, I think that's what they should do because, I don't know, it was a cool thing and it worked for the most part. There's a couple of assholes who still pulled out their phones and had to get kicked out by security, but, I mean, most people just want a picture or 2 or maybe a little video proof that they were there, and that you could definitely get out of the way in the first 3 songs, so that was a good move. And yeah, just the energy of the performance, I could not believe. He came out on fire and was just super hyper all the way through and just worked the crowd like none other. And it was a kick-ass, unexpected, fun time, and that is why it is number 5 on my list, Peter Frampton at the Cheyenne Civic Center. And number 4 on my list is kind of a cheat. I fully acknowledge that, and I expect some people to be irritated that this one ended up on the list as opposed to maybe some of the other ones, because this isn't a music act, but is still technically a concert. Number 4 is Dave Chappelle. I attended his pop-up, one of two pop-up shows that he performed at the Summit Music Hall down in Denver earlier in March, I think it was. And I'll tell you the story about it, even though it's, like I said, it's not a music concert, and I know everything on my Facebook page and on this YouTube channel mostly revolves around music, but a stand-up show is technically a concert, and I had such a good time at this show that it felt like cheating to not put it on the list. So even though maybe it is cheating to put it on the list, I don't really give a fuck because it's my list. Dave Chappelle announced the day before, so he, I can't remember, there was somebody performing at the Comedy Works on like Wednesday and Thursday night, and Dave Chappelle just showed up, and so they obviously gave him the mics because they gave him the stage, because when Dave Chappelle walks in, that's what you do. If he wants to perform, you let him perform. He's one of these comedians that's been around forever. Well, not forever, but he did definitely help forge the way for modern comedy. If you look through, he's one of the most prominent figures of the last 20, 30 years. Definitely, without question. And so he was performing these random pop-up appearances. Everybody thought maybe he was going to do a surprise full pop-up show instead of just random appearances. And that was true. Thursday night he announced, hey, tomorrow I'm doing 2 shows at the Summit Music Hall. And tickets were $100 a piece. It was sold out like that, but I was able to snag one. If you're unfamiliar with the area, the Summit Music Hall is a pretty tiny venue that a lot of like underground rock bands kind of play. It was funny. I can't remember any of the band names, but you know, those kind of bands all have funny ass names like Pussy Hammer or something. I can't even remember what they were called, but seeing Dave Chappelle's name on the marquee sign next to all those other bands was hilarious. But the venue's pretty small as a general admission venue, and for this it was even smaller because we were all seated. So I'm not sure. Maybe there was a couple hundred chairs in there, but I doubt it. Maybe Dave Chappelle just decided he needed money, or maybe he just wanted to do a show. Either way, it was a cool last minute, like low-key thing, seeing somebody as giant as Dave Chappelle in a little venue like that. And I got there a little early. My seat was front row center, so I was right up next to him. And he came out holding no punches, making jokes about stuff that shouldn't be joked about by everybody, obviously, but he has the ability to make jokes about certain things and it not seem offensive, or at least it seems okay, is what I'm saying. Like, if I got up on stage and started joking about some of these things, I would probably be hung and it would probably be fair, but his persona and just his characteristics, he's just one of the best stand-up comedians of all time. And seeing him live in a surprise appearance like that, a show that you wouldn't assume he put that much work behind. It's not like you're watching somebody who's taping a special who's been touring for years, kind of molding out all this material. This was just a show that it didn't seem like he'd worked that hard on, and it's number 4 on my list of 22 shows. And there's another comedian on my, not on this list, but on the overall list of 22 shows. And so, yeah, it's number 4 mostly just because of how amazing it was and how much fun I had. And it was my first time seeing a comedy show besides the Trump campaign when it came through, and I went to a live recording of the Jay and Silent Bob podcast. But this is my first actual like stand-up comedian, and it was fucking awesome. So number 4 on the list is Dave Chappelle at the Summit Music Hall. And number 3 on this list is another band that I have seen a shit ton of times. I don't even exactly remember how many times, but I've definitely seen them at least every year for the past 4 or 5 years. And that being said, the fact that I see them that frequently and they're still this high on the list means that they can still surprise me, and that is Five Finger Death Punch, who played in Casper at the Casper Event Center with Bad Wolves and Of Mice and Men. Bad Wolves opened up the show with so much energy and just off the charts wildness. Tommy Vex is one of the best frontmen right now, which sucks because he's not getting all the credit he deserves. But he worked the crowd like crazy, got us all jacked up for Five Finger Death Punch. Of Mice and Men played between them, And that was kind of a throwaway for me just because I'm not super into their music, but it was a solid performance. I'm not taking anything away from it. It just wasn't for me. And then Five Finger Death Punch came out, and they only had half the arena. It was a half house show. It wasn't a full arena show. I guess they're kind of still on their comeback. They're not playing super big arenas yet. But so that they played half the show, they sold out, or half the arena, half the venue, sold out what was available. And it was just an awesome, fun performance. It was right on the heels of their album release, so they were giving out a lot of albums. Ivan came down at the end of the show and was signing stuff like he always does. I got my brother's hat signed because this was a celebration. My brother was about to graduate high school and head off to basic training for the military, so as a little gift to him, I bought his tickets to the show and we went. And we had a kick-ass time, and that might be why it's so high on this list. Because I can't say that there was really anything different that they did at this show that they haven't done at their other shows. But I just had such a good time, and it might have been just due to the fact that I was hanging out with my brother. He was about to be gone for like 5 months. And we had a kick-ass time, and now that he's back, because that was, early into last year, hopefully we can go to some other fun shows this year as well. So for all those reasons, and the fact that they're just such a fun band to see. There's nothing else like it. And I know a lot of people are against their music because it seems formulaic and kind of easy, but that makes for a fucking awesome fun time at a live show, because you can sing along. If you've heard the songs once, then you can sing along at the show and have a blast. Plus, I haven't been to a show. I haven't had the opportunity to hop in a pit in a while, and even though it was a small one, it was still a kick-ass time. And so yeah, Five Finger Death Punch, Bad Wolves, and Of Mice and Men, number 3. And number 2 on my list might be the biggest show that I saw last year as far as who was involved. It was a co-headlining tour. Deep Purple and Judas Priest. I can't remember the name of the tour, but they hit a lot of big cities, and including Denver. They hit the Pepsi Center, and so I made sure to be there. Me and a couple of buddies went. We had a little group of people that went down. And Judas Priest actually played first, which was surprising and kind of a bummer, actually, when they started. Because we just assumed, because both bands are famous as fuck. I'm pretty sure they've both been around forever. Let's just put it that way. Definitely making music, early 70s. They've been around for a long time, so they both have huge fan bases. But typically, most people can list off more Judas Priest songs than they can Deep Purple songs. So we just assumed that Judas Priest would be the main headliner, even though it was billed as a co-headliner. Because I've gone to other shows before. Shinedown and Five Finger Death Punch, definitely, technically a co-headliner, but Five Finger Death Punch was on the ticket. They played last. Same thing with Justin Moore and Lee Brice, co-headline last year. Justin Moore was the main. He was the one on the ticket. He was the one that played last. But this, so we just assumed it was Judas Priest, so when they came out first, we were a little bummed. But that went away really quick because of how fucking good they were, and just loud and powerful, and all their pyro shit. And I see pictures of Rob Halford all the time, but they must not be using current pictures, because he's a pretty popular figure in the world of rock music, as he should be. And so like every week or so there's a Blabbermouth or a Loudwire article involving Rob Halford, and the pictures they use, I don't know, I guess I just didn't realize how old he was, because the dude's gray as fuck and he's still killing it up there. And the rest of the band too, even though it wasn't the full lineup, because they had some lineup changes early in this tour due to illnesses and things like that, they still performed amazingly. And then and then Deep Purple came out, and they played a full hour-long, solid set too. And I knew a couple songs sprinkled throughout there, but even the songs I didn't know, they were just so talented, and the music they played was just mesmerizing. And they just play super long songs. They played a whole set length, but I think there was only like maybe 8 songs. I couldn't even tell you. And then, they ended with Smoke on the Water, they ended with Hush. They didn't play Woman from Tokyo, which did surprise me, but it didn't take away from the performance at all. I was just kind of listening like, trying to hear, like, maybe if I heard any songs that I didn't know were theirs that I knew. And I didn't get any of that. What I got was just a bunch of awesome live music and lights and pictures and stuff to go along with it. It was just it was just like an hour and a half long trip that was awesome. So Judas Purple, Judas Priest and Deep Purple co-headlining tour. That's number 2. We got one more to go. Thanks for bearing with me. Before I get to my number 1, here are some honorable mentions. Okay, before we get to number 1, like I said, at the end of number 2, here are some honorable mentions. And I saw a bunch of bands this year, a bunch of huge bands. I only saw 22, but there's some heavy hitters in here that are not on this list. Here's just some just to give you a perspective that didn't make the list before I unveil my honorable mentions. Marilyn Manson, not on the list. One of the most prolific, famous artists out there, one of the most crazy metal bands, whatever, that's ever performed, not on the list. Easton Corbin, pretty solid country singer, got all these hits on the radio, not on the list. Eddie Money, not on the list. Trans-Siberian Orchestra, not on the list. And Nickelback, yeah, I know, Nickelback, not on the list, so don't worry. A bunch of other artists that I did see, Hannibal Buress, Last in Line, Sabroso Festival featuring Pennywise and The Offspring and Lit. All these not on my list, but I want to mention most of the bands that I did see. So, without further ado, my honorable mention is going to be, boom, A Perfect Circle. I know I've been wearing this shirt the whole time. A lot of people probably thought that this was going to end up being my number 1. It's not. It was the only Red Rock show that I got to attend last year. A lot of these shows, a lot of these venues, I only got to go to once. I only did one Frontier Day show, one Stampede show, one Grizzly Rose show, and one Red Rock show. And it was A Perfect Circle, and it was like 2.5 hours of just trippy, awesome music. Maynard is a creature. That's the only way I know how to describe him, just how reclusive he is. And when he comes out and just starts playing, there's nothing else you could do but just watch. And I went to that show with my other brother. He actually took me. He won some tickets off the radio. We had some funny ass stories, that happened at the show. It was a great experience. And yeah, it was just solid instrumental playing all the way through, great music, and he actually let us pull our phones out at the end and take some pictures, and Maynard is notorious for banning phones as concerts, so that was pretty cool. So not quite good enough to be in the top 10, but I wanted to mention A Perfect Circle played at Red Rocks, and they fucking killed it, and Red Rocks is another one of the best venues ever, so that's my honorable mention, and here comes my number 1 pick. And number 1 on my list is another band, or artist actually, that I have seen a shit ton of times. So the moral of this whole list, I guess, is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Because a lot of bands on this list were repeat viewings for me, but that takes nothing away from the performance, and it actually adds to and makes better a lot of times. My number 1 show that I went to last year was Cole Swindell's Another Reason to Drink tour, featuring Dustin Lynch and Lauren Elena, and this is actually one of the other ones that I actually did film a review. It's part of the last podcast if you want to check that out. So I don't have to talk about it much here, but I'll just mention the main reason why it was the number 1 show of the year was because just for the simple fact of how much fun I had. Nobody works a crowd like Dustin Lynch. Nobody right now really in the country genre has as powerful of a female voice as Lauren Elena as far as, up and comers. I'm not talking about obviously, these legends like Reba or, Leanne Rimes, whoever you want to bring up, but as far as the current class of up and coming female country artists, Lauren Elena is definitely the best, and Cole Swindell is he knows how to put on a show. That's all I could say. This is my 5th or 6th time seeing him, and he didn't disappoint, and he was the headliner, obviously, and this was my first time seeing him headline a big show like this, and he did awesome. Like I said, I talked about this as part of the last podcast, so you can go on and watch that if you care more about my in-depth thoughts on it, but just the covers that they all performed together, I take videos at a lot of concerts. Let me put it this way. I take videos at a lot of concerts, and I actually do go back and rewatch them, unlike a lot of people who just let it sit in their camera roll. I actually like to go back sometimes when I'm having my evening cigarette. I'll just sit back and watch, some videos from all these cool concerts I went to. And the one I watched the most was Cole Swindell, Dustin Lynch, and Lauren Elena covering the song The Middle, which is, it really speaks to it because it's not a song that I like. It's not a song that I'd heard of. I don't listen to that type of music typically. But the twang and twist that they put on it with their performance, it just capped off a already fucking awesome night and a fun concert. And I can't think of any other show that I had that much fun at this year. And so for that reason, Cole Swindell takes the top spot on this list. And it's actually cool too because this is, like I said, my 5th or 6th time seeing him, but my first time seeing him headline a big show like this. So for him to be number 1 on my first year seeing him as a headliner in a big venue, that's pretty fucking cool. And there's a whole story on why we went to this show as opposed to others, but watch the podcast for that. I won't bore you with it now. But that'll do it for my list. That's number 1, Cole Swindell, Another Reason to Drink, the second leg of his Reason to Drink tour. Just phenomenal. I don't know if he's going to tour again this next year. He might take a break because of how successful this last year was, but if he does, definitely go to see it. And definitely go to see it if he's got Dustin Lynch and Lauren Elena with him. Number 1, Cole Swindell, Another Reason to Drink. And we did it. Thanks for checking out my list. I'll slice this video up and put it into individual videos because I rambled more than I wanted to. This is going to be a way longer video than I anticipated. I guess I had more to say than I thought I did. Here's a recap of my list real quick. Number 10, Sublime with Rome. Number 9, Jon Pardi and Jimmy Allen. Number 8, REO Speedwagon. Number 7, Three Doors Down with Elvis Monroe. Number 6, Justin Moore and Dylan Scott. Number 5, Peter Frampton. Number 4, Five Finger Death Punch of Mice and Men and Bad Wolves. Actually, that's number 3. Number 4, it's Dave Chappelle. Number 2 is Judas Priest and Deep Purple. And number 1, Cole Swindell, Another Reason to Drink. Thanks for checking out my top 10 list. Like I said at the beginning, sorry that this is coming up late. I'll get in a little bit now, I guess, why last year was so crazy. I had a lot of stuff happening in my personal life over 2018 that kind of just took precedence over trying to get this concert addiction thing fully up and running, which is why the content was slim to none most times during the year. I welcomed a child to my life in July. I was in school from February to August. I graduated from the Academy of Radio and Television Broadcasting, their online program. I completed the radio course online. I graduated back in September, and so yeah, I had all that going on. Full-time student. I was doing 30 plus hours a week of school, working a full-time job, preparing to be a dad, then being a dad, all while trying to do this shit too. 2018 will be differently though, because shit has smoothed out a little and I got my stuff set up a little better. It should be easier for me to just come down and bust some videos out. So we're talking about daily content, hopefully every day. I promised that a couple times in the past. But whenever a new story drops, I will come and make a little video talking about it, and I'll also try to write more on the website. Other big news, our podcast is debuting again tomorrow. On Sunday, it will be our year in review podcast for Concert Addiction. Me and Chris Stackrack Hoover are just going to sit down and talk about the year in music, the legends that we lost, like I mentioned at the beginning, some of the bigger stories that happened. We're going to count down the Forbes top 10 list of the highest earning tours last year. It'll just be a look back at the year that was. And then next week will probably be a look ahead at the year coming, and then from here on out we'll just do a weekly podcast, talk about all the news that dropped in the world of live music, so make sure to keep your eyes out for that. Until then, make sure that you like my Facebook page and subscribe to this YouTube channel, so facebook.com/concertaddiction and youtube.com/concertaddiction. Also check out my website, concertaddiction.com, though it has not been updated in a while. And overall, just expect big things from me in 2019. We're coming out full steam. I'm going to try to just make this, it's obviously not my priority. I got a lot of stuff going on. But this will be more of a priority than it has been in the past, and I've learned a lot, and I know the direction I want to take this in, and so I look forward to sharing this with you all over the year to come. And Happy New Year! Thanks for watching my list. Bye.